Hey guys, and welcome back to the vlog. So about a week ago, I asked on Instagram for you guys to ask me any questions that you had. I got loads of comments on the post, which was great, and loads of interesting questions. So I've picked a few out to go through today on this channel. One of the most important ones that I've been asked a lot is all about my income sources as a landscape photographer. I know a lot of people are interested in this, so I'm going to start off by answering that question right after this intro. So first up, the first question from SJ Visuals was, as a landscape photographer, what are your income sources? Now, as I said at the beginning, I know a lot of people are interested in this, and I certainly would have really liked to know how you can make money as a landscape photographer before I started out. So I've written a bit of a list here. I'm gonna go through them with you guys. So number one is direct commissions. So you might get a hotel, a tourist board, a brand come to you as a client and say, we want you to go here, take these photos for us, for them to use in advertising or wherever they want them. Now, the fee for this can vary, wildly. Sometimes it's expenses only, but I'd say in general you can earn somewhere between $300 and $600 a day would be kind of an average rate if you're being sent abroad, but it can be a lot more than that. It can be into thousands of pounds a day if you're a well-known photographer. It really depends on so many variables. It depends where they're using them. So number two is stock libraries. Now, they were big in the past with photographers, but nowadays it's quite hard to make money off stock libraries. Often the fees they pay out are quite small. I mean, I've had photos used in national newspapers on their online websites or blogs and earn like commissions of £2 from it. It can be ridiculous. I don't really use them very much. They're a bit oversubscribed. There's a lot of amazing photos on stock libraries. So if you want to make money from it that way, you have to get something very original in a very different place. Something different basically, because otherwise how do you make your photo of this beach stand out amongst 1,000 others that have been taken? Number three comes on to a similar kind of area as the stock libraries, and that is usage. So brands may approach you directly and ask to use a certain photo you've taken to license it in advertising to use in their website or on social media, wherever they want it, and they'll pay you a fee to use that photo, which you've already taken. And I've had this before with hotels where I've taken a great shot, say for example from a drone, and they've come to me and said, oh, I saw your photo on Instagram of our hotel, would love to license this, would love to use this on our site, and then you can negotiate a fee between you. Number four is prints. So I sell prints online on my website. They're a nice way of making money. I put my favorite prints up, the most popular ones, and people buy them as a piece of art. You find a lot of photographers along the same category as this might sell books or calendars once a year and things like that. Number five is workshops and teaching. So you find photographers will run workshops, whether it be in their home, like in the home country, like I could do it in London, take a group of people and teach them about the skills and knowledge I have as a landscape photographer. Or what's becoming increasingly popular is photo tour workshops, where photographers will take a group of people and lead them in a certain environment, teach them what they know and charge a fee for that. So I'm actually running my first workshops at the end of this year. I'm going to be doing one in Iceland and potentially one in the Dolomites. If you're interested, please do have a look at my website. I'll put the link below and have a look for more information there. Okay, 6 and 7, so they follow a slightly different theme. So number 6 is affiliate marketing. So let me say, for example, I post a link to Amazon and you guys follow that link to a camera which I'm recommending. You then buy that camera. Amazon will then give me a very small kickback, a slight bit of the money, because I have sent you to their website to buy that product. This is really big amongst bloggers and YouTubers, and quite often it's the way they make most of their money. Number 7, which is along the same lines, is as an influencer. So again, anyone with a big following on social media, as a lot of big photographers have the power to advertise products, hotels, countries, and occasionally I might get paid by, say, a tourist board to post a picture of their country and to tag them in it, just to advertise their country, and they will pay me for that. Now, I'm always very wary of this because I don't like sales, I don't like pushing a product I don't believe in, because as a follower I would not like that. So I would only ever post, earn money from influencer posts if it's a product that I would buy or a place I would travel to. It's something I believe in and I'm passionate about. So very occasionally I do that. Some people make their full living off that, and if you have a very large following, you can earn a lot of money. Like once you get over sort of 500,000 followers, you can be paid a lot of money for one. You know, people get paid £10,000 to post one photo to advertise one thing for a brand once you have a few million followers. And I dread to think how much people like Kim Kardashian get. You know, once you've got hundreds of millions, they get paid an absolute fortune. But that's only really applicable if you have a large following. So I think really if you want to earn money as a landscape photographer, the first 5 points are a bit more relevant. I think most landscape photographers would not focus on one of those. They would, you know, you try and do a bit of everything. Variety is a bit more interesting, and you're unlikely to make a huge amount of money from each one, so you have to spread it out. So I hope you found that interesting. If you've got any questions at all regarding any of that, any more questions, then feel free to comment below or send me a message, and I'm happy to answer and help you out with that. So let's go through some of the other questions, as I know I was talking on quite a bit there. Let's start off with Deja Shu. So, hey Shu, where are you from? So I'm actually from a village called Tiptree. I grew up in a village called Tiptree, which is just north of London. It's not that exciting. They make jam. It's a nice little village, but I now live in Colchester, which is also just north of London. It's a much larger town. I'm not far from London Airport, so it suits me well. I don't really want to live in a big city. I like being in the countryside, and it's easy for me to get around and travel to other countries. Ian Woods next. So he says, best camera to take on your travels for less than $300. Now, that's a tricky one. I have to say I'm not an expert on compact cameras at the lower end of the scale once you get down to that price, because I don't ever focus on them. I'm always focusing on the high-end professional cameras. But having said that, you know, a product that I actually really love is the GoPro. I'd say you could get a second-hand newest model GoPro for probably about $300. What's that, something like £250? And they're a great all-round camera. I think the pictures from them are decent. They're not amazing. They're not really landscape cameras, but they're nice wide angles, and if it's good light outside, you can get some great shots from them. And the video quality from them is amazing, and they're so good for adventure shots as well. You know, you can take them anywhere. They can get soaked, they can get bashed, and they're really hardy. So I generally always have a GoPro with me, and occasionally I post GoPro pictures on my Instagram too. So yeah, I think that's what I'd recommend. Okay, DL Ferdinands. As a photographer, is it better to post-process all the photos you post, or are there some photos that are just good without being post-processed that you can post directly? Okay, so I think what you're saying there is that basically, do I edit all my photos, or are some of them good enough that I don't have to edit them now? I would say all my photos go through Lightroom and have some kind of editing, but it is true that some photographs do come out great out of camera. If you nail it in camera and the light's right, you've got a beautiful sunny day, sometimes you don't really need to do any editing. They always go through Lightroom anyway, because I always shoot RAW files and they have to be converted to JPEGs. But yeah, it's true, some photos don't need post-processing. And one little thing that I find interesting is that quite often, a photo that I don't think is very good, when I take it in camera, I then quite often import them into Lightroom. I have a play around, I edit, and I can make them look really good, and a photo that I'm really pleased with, and vice versa. Sometimes you take a photo in camera that you love and you think's great, and you put it in Lightroom, and there's not actually anything you can do with it. It's kind of great. You try and play around with it, and you can't make it any better. So yeah, I think it just depends on the light, on the scenario. But certainly, yes, there are pictures that you can post or use directly without any editing. Okay, so next up is from Chantel D. Garcia. How do you handle grain in low light, high ISO star shots? Do you have a trick? Grain is a funny thing. I'm not an expert on editing with that. I quite like to embrace grain. I think that it's not that bad a thing. I think if the photo's good and it's in focus and it's sharp, I don't think grain's a big issue. Once you've got grain in a photo, there's really not a lot you can do about it. There are certain things you can do in Photoshop with a bit of time, like there's something called surface blur, which can smooth out basically parts of the photo that don't have detail, and you can make it look smooth. But I always find it looks a little bit odd, so For me personally, I'd embrace the grain or try not to get grain in the camera in the first place. So use fast lenses, use a good quality sensor camera if you can. Do long exposures, but try and keep the ISO down a bit. But yeah, embrace it, and just feel like there's not too much you can do after. Okay, next up from David Kindness. What is your process for softening harsh light in post? Do you know what? I think this is almost a very similar question, that light is a funny thing, and unless you're a CGI artist, there's not a lot you can do. I mean, light hits every surface, everything in a photo and gives it texture, and you can't really change that very easily. Harsh light is harsh light, and I think you need to embrace it in the way you're shooting and create something dramatic, embrace the shadows, make something a bit edgy and dramatic, or wait for the light to become softer. I mean, most of my work is done in the golden hour, around sunset and sunrise, and yeah, I don't think there's a lot you can do in editing to change harsh light. Okay, next up from Lucas Chin is, what are the best places you have been in the United States for photography? Now, I've been to the United States quite a few times over the years, but as a landscape photographer, I've only really been once. I went to Yosemite and I was blown away by it. I got some of my favourite shots in my portfolio. I just think it's an incredibly beautiful place. But I haven't seen any other national parks. I've mainly travelled around cities, and there's a lot I want to see. There's national parks in California, Utah, Arizona, Oregon, and then certainly Canada and the Rockies, and basically most places have somewhere that have interested me. So I'm hoping maybe to get there later in this year or maybe next year, but yeah, watch this space. Okay, next up, My Piece of Wild. I would love to know when you got into photography, and also what is your favourite thing to capture. Also, this photo is breathtaking. Oh, thanks very much. Okay, so I first got really passionate about photography about 10 years ago. I was backpacking around the world for 2 years. I had my first SLR, which was a Canon 350D, which was a great camera. And yeah, I was interested in any kind of travel photography, and I got very passionate about it. I then unfortunately got my leg broken in Colombia, which is another whole long story, but I had to fly home for an operation. After the operation, as I was recuperating, I started to teach myself a bit more advanced photography, and I got taught by some other great photographers. I shadowed them and did some work experience with them. After a couple of years, I became a full-time photographer myself. I do all sorts, from commercial and advertising work in London to weddings, and obviously landscape and adventure photography, which is my passion. That's what I like photographing the most. That's what I just love, being out in nature and kind of capturing the beauty of the world. And I think what I love about it as well is it gets me out to those places. It gets me up that mountain, and it gets me seeing that with my eyes. I love the photo aspect, but I love being there just as much. And that's, the photography is what makes me get out the door and go and do that. So yeah, okay, so traveling Tong. Did you enjoy Norway? What was your favorite place here? I love Norway. It is one of my favorite countries, and I would move there in a heartbeat. I think it is one of the most beautiful countries on the planet. The whole coastline is incredible. I've been several times. I've been to sort of the fjords area of Trolltunga and Preikestolen. I've been to Lofoten. I've been to Senja, and up that area, Tromsø. Probably Lofoten is the place I'd like to go back to the most. I think it's all beautiful, but I'd like to explore more of Lofoten, and I'd love to see it in the summer. But really, I love all of Norway, so highly recommended as a country. Okay, next up, Paul Hanninen. A question, what do people never ask you that you wish they did? Firstly, hey Paul, and thanks so much for following along and always commenting on my work. I really appreciate it. What do people never ask me that I wish they did? You know what, I don't think there is a particular question that I wish people asked me. I'm always happy to answer any questions and help people out, because I know a lot of people helped me out when I started this journey of photography. A lot of people really gave me the time of day and answer my questions, and so I like to give back if I can. So I always try my best to answer any messages and comments. But yeah, I don't think there's a specific question I want to be asked. So there we go. Okay, that's all the questions I've chosen. So thanks so much for all your comments, and I hope you found the answers useful. If you've got any further questions about it, please feel free to ask. And I think next week or the next few weeks, I'm going to start to do some more editing tutorials because that seemed to get really great feedback from you guys, and I know you appreciate seeing how I edit shots. So if you've got any specific shots that you'd like to see how I edited them, please do ask. Or if there's anything specific you'd like me to talk about, I'd love to know, because really I'm doing this for you guys, for the followers. I really enjoy doing it, but it's about you guys. I'm not really making anything out of this. So thanks so much for following along, and I will see you next week.